So you bought an ND filter and you're trying to shoot outdoors in direct sunlight, but you're not getting quite the image that you were expecting, and you're noticing that the quality of your image is severely lacking. So what gives? Let's dive in. All right, having an ND filter, everyone does it, I did it. You think it's a solution to everything, and you can just go outside and start shooting in harsh sunlight and not have to worry. That's not the case. See, ND filters help out tremendously, and I'm using one right now, but being in the shade, picking and choosing your locations if you can, and also manipulating light to your advantage still matters. So there's a couple different ways to do that, and I'm going to focus today particularly on diffusing sunlight and showing you how much of a difference that actually makes, along with having ND filters. And then I also want to show you a mistake that I did when we were shooting our last film, which we regret, but we learned from and we're moving on. But my mistake will hopefully help you guys learn not to do it. So let's show you guys a couple examples right now. This example is showcasing our actor. Our actor's walking out into direct sunlight. We don't have any diffusion. We're using a cinema camera, a really expensive cinema camera with internal NDs. The NDs are active, but you can see that the subject, the actor's face, is in really harsh sunlight, and it's just not working out. Now, if we do the same exact scene, but we add in diffusion, we're diffusing the light now. We're manipulating the light and making sure that it's casting evenly onto the subject in a softer and a lot less harsher environment. You can see that the image has just upped its game tremendously. Now it looks professional, it looks really, really nice. And that is a good example of, even though we had ND filters, you still need to consider diffusion and how to manipulate the light to do what you're trying to do and really illustrate the image that you're trying to get. Now in this example, we totally messed up. As the car is approaching, the angle that we're shooting in looks okay. But as soon as the subject gets out, again, we have ND filters and he's walking into the shadow, but the background is in direct sunlight and it is causing the image to just degrade. I mean, the highlights are completely overblown. There's nothing we can do in post to bring them back in. In hindsight, I wish we would have shot the image either perpendicular to the sun, where he's off to the corner instead of right in front of where the sun would have been shining and then casting behind him and overblowing the highlights, or we would have shot in the opposite direction where he's walking into frame but the sun is actually behind him. And if we would have done it in the shadows, it would have came out much nicer. So it's just something that we weren't necessarily aware of at the time. And yes, it did make the image look, in my opinion, a little bit more amateur. It's always a good idea to block your scenes, go out there, scope out the place, and figure out where you're going to put the camera, how you're going to manipulate the light, if you need to have diffusion, if there's going to be shadows, and try to do it at the same time that you're planning on shooting. Now, last thing that I want to talk about is, what if you're in full control? Maybe you're in direct sunlight, you have diffusion, you even have other lights that are balancing things and so forth. Now you're manipulating light. See, what you're doing with the light is illustrating certain features of the subject or whoever it is that you're trying to film and bringing out those features. So you're bending light, you're manipulating light around your subject. And that's ultimately what you always want to do, even when you're in complete control. If you're inside your house shooting a talking head, for example, you're going to manipulate light. You're going to have your key light, maybe a fill light, maybe a hair light to bring you out a little bit more. So you're front and center, right? So you're separated from the background. And maybe you'll have some colors, maybe a teal and orange, or maybe some blues or whatever to further define the subject, right? Further make the subject pop, or depending on what the subject's wearing, have those contrasting colors, right? To make the image a lot more enjoyable and interesting. That's manipulating light, right? You're in full control, you're manipulating it. The difference is when you're outdoors or when you're shooting guerrilla style, it's a lot harder to manipulate the light because you're dealing with Mother Nature. So how do you deal with, let's say, it's a clear sunny day and then all of a sudden there's some clouds and the sun's playing peekaboo with you and completely changing your image? That's something you have to figure out and deal with. Sometimes, I mean, depending on what the weather looks like, people will just scrap the shoot and they'll have to come back and shoot another day. Other times, it may be a situation where everyone kind of knows and expects that it'll be random and hard to control. So they'll purposely shoot in the shadows, or they'll purposely shoot, where behind a building, where the light is at least to some degree being controlled a little bit, and you're not showing the background, the light in the background. So maybe the subject's talking to the camera and he's behind a wall like this. I can manipulate this image a little bit more. There's a wall behind me. Yeah, there's still some light right here, but my point is, it's a lot better than this image, where I can't control what's going on right here, right? I mean, the sun's coming in and coming out. So you can get creative with your shots, right? Likewise, I like this image right here because the sun, which is now in this direction, somewhere over here, it's shining this way. So I'm in the shadows and I'm actually getting plenty of reflections from here, and it's exposing me really, really well. If I shoot in this direction, I'm kind of in the shadows. It doesn't look very flattering, right? There's nothing going on here. It's a little dull. Likewise, over here, even worse, right? This doesn't look good at all. So out of everything, this is the most interesting shot. There's things going on behind me and I'm properly exposed. So it's all about manipulating light to your advantage. That's it for me, guys. I hope you found this video informative. And if you did, please consider subscribing and joining our channel memberships. I'll catch you guys on the next one. Take care, everybody.